Hello third graders, welcome to our math class. In this lesson, we're going to practice counting by fives and ones on the number line as a strategy to tell time. So in this lesson, we're going to be using number line as our strategy. So what is a number line? So I have included a photo of number line here, and you'll be able to see the same one on your seesaw activity as well. And throughout this lesson and for your seesaw activity as well, we're going to be using a number line to track the time it takes for us to complete each question on the slide. So let me first begin with labeling my number line. So I'm going to start from 10 o'clock because that's right now my time is 10:23. So I'm going to draw a number line that falls between 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock. And this is going to be 05, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, and 11 o'clock. So right now it's 10:23. So I'm going to plot 10:23. So it's going to be somewhere between here, 10:23. And I'm going to write start because that's when I started my lesson video. And now I'm going to go on to my first question. So I'm going to put another mark here and say question 1. So let me go to my question number 1. So here it says, the question says, plot a point on the number line for the times shown on the clocks below. Then draw a line to match the clocks to the points. So let's look at the first clock and let's tell the time first. So let's look at the shorthand. It's between 7 and 8. So I'm gonna write 7, and I'm gonna check my longhand, and it falls between 3 and 4, which is 17. So my time is 7:17. And now I need to look at my number line to find where 17 is. So right now here's 10, here's 15, and 17 is 2 after 15. So I'm going to plot my point, and I'm going to draw a line to link those two. And now the next one is 7:03. I'm going to find 7:03 on my number line, and I'm going to draw a line to link them. Next one, let's look at the clock once again. It is almost 8 but not quite 8, so we know that it's still 7. And when we check our longhand, it is 7:55. So on the number line I need to find 55, which is about here, and I'm going to draw a line. And I'm going to do the same for my last clock, which is about 7, so after 8, so 41-ish. Okay, and here's my 7:41, and here's my last line. So this is how we do our question number 1. And now I'm done with my first question. I'm going to move on to my second question, but before I move on, I'm going to check my number line, and I'm going to mark my point once again to indicate when I started my question number 2. And here's my question number 2. Jesse woke up this morning at 6:48 a.m. Draw hands on the clock below to show what time Jesse woke up. So there are 2 ways to begin this question. One, by drawing the shorthand and longhand after, or we can start by drawing longhand. For me, I'm going to start with my longhand because that sometimes helps me where to put my shorthand. So it's 6:48, and we know that 1 represents 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55. So now I need to find where my 48 is. So since here is my 40 and here is my 45, I know that 45 falls between these two numbers, which is about here. So I'm going to draw my longhand first, and we know that 48 passes the half. So it should be somewhere between 6 and 7, but closer to 7 because it's only 12 to 17. And now I'm gonna do my question number 3, which is Mrs. Burns starts teaching math at 8:23 a.m. Draw hands on the clock below to show what time Mrs. Burns starts teaching math. So once again, I'm gonna start with my longhand, which is about here. So this is 20, 21, 22, 23. So here is my longhand, and it didn't pass half, so it should be closer to 8. It's about somewhere here. And now we're done with my second slide. I'm going to move on to my third slide. But before I move on to my third slide, I need to go to my number line to indicate my time. So here, to keep the consistency with your Caesar activity, I'm going to rename this. So it's actually going to be slide, slide 1. And this is going to be slide 2. And right now it's almost 10:30, so I'm going to plot my point here, and I'm going to say slide number 3. Okay, so let's go to my slide number 3. It says the clock shows what time Erin finishes her homework. What time does Erin finishes her homework? So let's look at the clock and tell the time. So let's begin with our shorthand. It's between 6 and 5, but we know that the shorthand didn't pass the number 6. So we know that it should be 5. And when I look at the longhand, it falls somewhere between 6 and 5 once again. However, we know that this is 25, and then move 2 to the left, which is 27. And we need to write down 27 a.m. p.m. we don't know, so this is all we need to indicate. And we're gonna move on to our last question, but once again, before we move on, we need to mark our timeline, which is 10:30. But I remember that I started early, so I'm going to move my plot here. But on your seesaw activity, please make sure that you don't round just like me, because the moment you round, it just changes the whole number line. So let's do our last question together. Here the question says, the clock shows what time Jason gets to school in the morning. What time does Jason get to school? So let's look at our first clock here. Let's start with the shorthand, which is 8. And then we can write down the longhand, which is about 4. And we know that it's going to be a.m. because we don't go to school at night. Number B, the first bell rings at 8:23. Draw hands on the clock to show when the first bell rings. So once again, I'm gonna start with my shorthand, which is about here. And it didn't pass the half, so I'm going to draw a shorthand that's slightly closer to 8. And let's look at question number C. Label the first and last tick marks 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. So here's my 8 a.m. So inside this box, I'm going to label my starting point and my end point. And plot points to show when Jason arrives at school, label it A. So when did he arrive at school? He arrived around 8:04, so it's going to be somewhere here, and it says label it A. And plot a point on the line when the first bell rings and label it B. So the first bell rang at 8:23. It's about somewhere here, and I'm going to label it B. So that's how simple my last question is. Now I'm done with all questions. I'm going to go back to my number line once again, and I'm going to label my time. Right now it's 10:32, and I'm going to say finish. So on your Seesaw 3K and 3S, you'll be able to see a similar question, and here is the number line to track your time. So don't forget to label your starting point and your end point, and also label each lines along the timeline. And then here is your first question. Once you're done, don't forget to go back to slide 1 and label your points. And here is your second question, third question, fourth question, and that's it. So when you're labeling your time, you may use question number 1, question number 2, or you may just label slide number 2, slide number 3. It's all up to you. So I hope you have fun. I'll see you later. Bye now.